right, let's do this. Find a stance with your feet hip width, toes in, heels out. And stand up tall, tall, tall. Open your chest, draw the shoulders back. Breathe deep into your ribs. Try to lift your ribs away from your hips. Get really tall. Find that nice length on the spine. And from this open position, strong spine, find that hinge on the hips. We're looking for engaging the low back here. We're going to work on having an arch on the back as we stretch the hamstrings. So we're working on lifting the tailbone, moving the sit bones and the tailbones up and back as we're lifting not just the chest but also the mid back off, creating space on the low back. So we're gonna do a few more breaths just holding here. With the shoulders back, the breath is big. We're trying to stand up tall, but we're pushing the hips back. Stand up tall, but push the hips back. You can maybe bring your hand back here, find a little groove, make sure that your bones are not sticking out. If the bones are sticking out, maybe you have to give off a little bit of the hinge and come back up a little taller. Big breaths here, the knees are unlocked. If you want to go a little deeper, you can always find more of a hinge as long as you're not folding your back. Okay, let's come back up to standing. Right foot forward, left foot back. We're just gonna stand here on a lunge position with the left heel off the ground. Find the right alignment of the hips. Usually it's gonna mean the hip of the front leg going slightly back to engage the glute. And then again, we're standing tall. We're trying to get high, big with the breath, wide with the breath, shoulders back. Start to send the hips back. Send the heart forward and up, not forward and down into the fold, but up. Again, engaging the paraspinals, getting the low back nice and big. Breathing, decompressing, checking the hips, making sure that you're straight, that you're not being pulled back by the opposite hip, but instead loading into the glute and of course the hamstring as we're trying to find that arch on the low back. Step forward and we're simply going to switch. Try to send that foot back as far as you can. Make sure the heels are wider than the toes. Standing up tall, pressing through the legs, just a small bend on the knees. Big breaths here. Push the hips back, push the hips back. We're going for that left hamstring as the hips aim back. We're going for the left hamstring and the sit bone on this hip, on the hip that's in front, is trying to pull back and up to give us that arch. We're not tucking the low back, we're tilting it, looking for that neutral or natural lordotic lumbar curvature. Chest up, shoulders back, big breaths. If it's too much and you're folding, you can always just unhinge a little bit. And step forward. All right, we're gonna go on the ground, face up. And if you like to hug your knees gently here, you can do a little rocking. And then let the feet touch the ground. Flex your ankles so that the heels are touching, the toes are off the ground. Flex the ankles, toes in, heels out. If you want to keep your big toes together, that's great. Just separate the heels, keep the ankle flexed, and we're going to drag or float, hover the legs to straight. Keep that flexion on the ankle and then slowly Again, hovering, toes in, heels out, ankle flex, coming as close as it's comfortable towards your tailbone, and then hovering the heel, and then hovering the legs all the way out. Keep the flexion of the ankle. Yeah, a few times like that. As you're working with this, tuck the chin in to lengthen the back of the neck and keep the shoulders down. You could have one hand on the belly, one hand on the chest, or you could just have your arms to the side. Couple more. Okay, and then you're gonna keep your knees bent and just let the feet touch the ground. Keep the legs narrow. Don't let the knees open out to the sides. We're gonna take a bridge here very, very slowly. And notice what happens on your low back as you press. Try to keep an arch here. Don't round the back. Keep the arch, come up only as much as is comfortable. Couple breaths here. Toes in, heels out. And on the exhale, just roll the spine down to the ground. Okay, from this position, now we're gonna keep the hips on the ground and just work with the tucking and the tilting of the pelvis. So as you inhale, you're gonna open the low back. There's a little arch here, or a little bridge. You could get your whole hand underneath. As you exhale, you're gonna push the low back bones down and lift the tailbone up and squeeze your abs and your hip flexors. Inhale, release your abs and the hip flexors, find the arch. Exhale, tuck. Inhale, tilt. Check the chin in, the shoulders back. And we're just working with tugs and tilts. If you want to go faster, you can go faster. But keep making each movement with the breath. So inhale into arch, exhale to round. Couple more. And we're gonna go on to our belly. So we're rolling down, we're gonna do a back extension. This is the exercise where we lift the chest up, engage the paraspinal muscles, while we also work on the hamstrings. And again, we're trying to work the hamstrings and the low back. So tuck the toes, so they're pointing down, flexing the ankle. Knees squeeze together, big toes squeeze together, chin in, head looking down, arms up, and we're just gonna hold it here. Feel the sensation on your low back. Feel what it feels like to have those lumbar extensors firing. Squeeze them. Squeeze the knees. One more big breath. Exhale, we're gonna lower down and slowly press back to a child pose. Toes together, knees apart. Canter pose here, we're gonna round the low back. This easy on the low back here. Let the hips be heavy. Let the torso be heavy. Arms reaching forward and resting down. Focus on your breath here. Walk your hands to the right, side stretch. Breathe into the left side. Relax the head, the shoulders. Come back to center. And to the left side, stretching and breathing on the right low back, specifically between the ribs, the lower ribs, and the top of the hip. Just breathe and soften. Come back to center. And again, on your belly, face down. We're gonna do some tuck and tilt in this position. So you could either have your elbows down underneath your shoulders, or you could do a pillow with your hands. We're gonna keep the knees on the ground. You can keep the toes pointing back so the feet are relaxed. Exhale, tuck the tailbone. Inhale, arch. Exhale, tuck. Inhale, arch. If you want to, and it feels good and it doesn't add any pain or discomfort, you could have your toes down, and as you inhale and arch, you could lift the pelvis up a little bit to help accentuate the curvature. And as you exhale and tuck, just pull the belly in. You could potentially even lift, might be too much, but basically seeing if you can exaggerate the movement a little bit to open up more of the areas that might be closed off, stagnant, or tight. A couple more. And we're gonna do one more back extension here, big toes together, heels apart, knee bent, chest up, shoulders back, big breaths, chin in. Working the low back muscles. And exhale, slowly lower down. We're gonna press ourselves to a tabletop position. Tabletop means knees underneath the hips, hands underneath the shoulders, and we're gonna do a few tuck and tilts here. So tucking the tailbone, that's the exhale, inhale, tilt. And notice again, it's the tailbone that's tucking, but it's also your sit bone. So in this position, your hamstrings are shortened, and as you go into the arch, your hamstrings are pulled a little bit into a stretch. So we're closing the hamstring and stretching it out. A few more like that. And we're gonna now go on our backs. We're gonna do the tuck and tilt again a few times here with the knees bent. Inhale, exhale. Find your own pace. And if you like to, on the exhales, you can start to lift the pelvis off the ground. So we roll the spine down. Inhale, arch. The tailbone is pressing down. We got that curvature. Exhale, tuck the tailbone, squeeze the low back, and at the end of the movement, you can lift the pelvis up a little bit off the ground. Release it down. Inhale, arch. Exhale, squeeze, round, lift, lower. Inhale, arch. So the exhale takes you from tucking and lifting to releasing and then the inhale comes in on the arch. And we'll save 2 or 3. See how many you can do. Again, if you want to keep your knees together, your toes together, your heels together, maybe even arching the feet. And we're going to save a few here so that we can exhale, tuck, left, and as you're lifting here, slow and easy on the hamstrings. See if you can tilt with the hips off the ground, tuck with the hips off the ground, maybe again tilt, arching the low back with the hips off the ground, tucking, maybe one more, and exhale it down. Take a breath here. We're gonna go feet together, knees together, and then right leg crosses over the left, stays together, arms out to the side, palms face up, and the knees are gonna go towards the right just a little bit. Keep your left shoulder down. Easy twist here, breathe into it. Squeeze the belly back to center, uncross, reset, and left leg over the right. We're going to the left side. Keep the right shoulder down. Back to center, uncross. A few more tuck and tilt in this position, either lifting the pelvis or not, maybe with the pelvis lifted, doing a few up there, or if that was not your preference, then you can just keep them on the floor, nice and easy. All right, last thing here, we're gonna slowly come back up to standing. And first, just stand up tall, shake it off. And nice and easy, a few tuck and tilts here, like we've been doing. Tuck and tilt, inhale, exhales, arch and round. Couple more. Good. And then stand up really tall. Give it a little bit of a hinge so that we're, again, challenging the hamstrings. Focus on the arch. The tuck is going to be easy. Arch and keep the hips back. Tuck and try to keep the hips back. Arch. Maybe going a little farther if you can still get that low back. You want to feel those muscles the same way that they felt on the back extension. Tuck and yeah, and the idea is to challenge yourself to go as far as you can, where you can still get that motion, where you can still get your low back arched without the hips coming forward. We want to get both the hamstrings stretched and the tuck and tilt. And if that means having the hips only a millimeter back into the hinge, then that's okay. We're just gonna work with it right there. And finally, just stand up tall, take a few breaths here, and have an awesome day. We'll see you next time.